I spent 8 years building my wife's family business. Then one morning, she fired me, without a word. That's when I realized it was never just business. It was betrayal. They called it a performance review. But no one schedules a performance review at 8:15 in the morning on a Friday. Not when you're married to one of the people behind the glass door. Clarissa sat at the head of the table when I walked in. Bianca, her sister, flanked her like a blade. Both wore the same look they used on vendors they didn't respect. Blank. Detached. Done. I should have known. I had a folder under my arm. Projections for the Milan launch. Spreadsheets. New supplier estimates. The kind of data that used to earn a nod from Raphael, their father, back when he ran Crimson and Veil like a kingdom and treated me like a son. Bianca didn't waste time. "We're letting you go," she said. Effective immediately. That was it. No lead up. No apology. Not even a fake reason. I waited for Clarissa to say something. Anything. She didn't. Just stared down at the table like there was something fascinating in the wood grain. "Understood," I said. My voice didn't crack. I didn't ask why. I didn't beg. I just walked out. The hall outside the boardroom felt 10 degrees colder. I didn't grab my coat. I didn't stop to say goodbye to anyone. I walked straight past the intern I'd hired last month and into the elevator. The numbers blurred on the panel. I don't remember the drive home. The house, Clarissa's, technically, was silent when I stepped inside. The kind of silence that makes you check the windows. I stood in the foyer for a full minute, holding my keys like I wasn't sure where to put them. 8 years. Gone in under 8 minutes. I sat on the edge of the bed. Her side was still made. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just kept hearing Bianca's voice in my head. "We don't need lazy." I'd been up until 2 the night before fixing the Petra account, their mistake. But I was lazy now. Clarissa hadn't defended me. Hadn't looked up. Just sat there like I was a problem they'd already solved. My phone buzzed around noon. A text from Marco. "What the hell happened?" I didn't know what to say. I typed back, "Ask your boss." He replied, "They didn't mention anything. And Clarissa's been out of the office all morning. Bianca's acting like she runs the place." Of course she is. I set the phone down. Tried to eat. Couldn't. Around 4 p.m., I opened the liquor cabinet and poured the scotch Clarissa said we were saving for our 10-year anniversary. We were 2 years shy. The drink burned going down. I stared at the fireplace, unlit, and waited to feel something besides confusion. Anger. Sadness. Anything. The silence didn't let up. Neither did the questions. The next morning, she still hadn't come home. No text. No missed call. Nothing. Her closet looked the same, but I noticed the absence. A few things missing. Not enough to scream, "I'm leaving you," but enough to leave a dent in the shape of uncertainty. Clarissa was precise like that. She knew how to create silence that could slice. I checked her location once. The old habit of a man who stopped trusting and started verifying. She disabled it. First time in years. I stood in the kitchen staring at the granite countertop we picked out together 3 renovations ago. She said it looked like rain. I said it looked like ash. I poured coffee into the mug she gave me for our 3rd anniversary. Julian, the fixer. I drank it black and let it go cold in my hands. Marco texted again around 10. Still no sign of her. Bianca's running full tilt. Everyone's asking questions. I didn't answer. I was too busy pacing. There was something off about the whole thing. Firing me, sure. I could stomach that. Families turn on their own all the time. But Clarissa's silence, that was the part one couldn't wrap my head around. No conversation. No fight. Just exile. I started pulling out old folders from my home office, not because I knew what I was looking for, but because I needed something tactile. Something real. The past 10 years of our lives were in these binders. Contracts, letters from suppliers, Merger terms I wrote in hotel lobbies while Clarissa slept beside me with a silk mask over her eyes. Somewhere around the third drawer, I found an envelope with my name on it. No handwriting, just typed. Inside was a single page. Termination clause. Biometric scan required to authorize changes to CNV Holdings. My name was listed as co-chairman. I sat down slowly. The memory came back in pieces. Raphael had insisted I co-sign the acquisition of a small IP holding company 5 years ago. It's just paperwork, he'd said, waving off my confusion. Standard stuff. Keeps the books clean. That little company held every major Crimson and Veil patent, and I still had legal authority over it. I rubbed my thumb over the page, as if the ink might change. It didn't. My name was still there, next to a signature and a seal. I remembered that day now. Raphael, tipsy off 2 bourbons, clapping me on the back like I'd just won him the Super Bowl. Clarissa hadn't been there. She never liked the messier sides of business. My phone buzzed again. Marco, you ever read your old contract? Like really read it? I stared at the screen. Me? Just did. There was a pause. Then, Marco, Jesus. Sit tight. I set the phone down, heart suddenly hammering in a way that didn't feel like anger. More like dread. Not because I realized I had power. Because I realized they didn't know. They thought they'd cut me loose. But I was still tied to the foundation. And if I wanted to, I could pull the whole thing down. The thought didn't comfort me. It chilled me. Around noon, I tried Clarissa's number again. Straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. What was I supposed to say? Hey, just realized you made a massive legal oversight while stabbing me in the back. Call me. Instead, I cleaned the kitchen. Every cabinet. Every drawer. I scrubbed the espresso machine we never used anymore and tossed out the bags of designer tea her mother kept gifting us. It felt surgical, removing pieces of her from the house. But no matter how much I wiped, the silence stayed. At 4 p.m., I went for a drive. I didn't have a destination, just needed motion. The road stretched out like questions, long and flat. I ended up in the old part of town, near the first warehouse we leased when Crimson and Veil was still scrambling to look established. It was half boarded up now, for lease. I parked across the street and just watched it for a while. The way you look at an old photo of yourself and wonder who that person even was. I'd spent nights there sorting defective samples with my sleeves rolled up and Clarissa perched on a stool nearby, sipping wine and pretending to work. She'd laugh when I cursed under my breath. She used to know how to laugh. I stayed in the car until the sun dipped low. Then I drove home. The house was still empty. No car in the driveway. No sign she'd returned. I unlocked the door and stepped into the same stillness that had followed me all day. Except this time, something was different. Her perfume. Faint, but recent. I walked upstairs. Her bag was on the bed. The same beige leather tote she'd carried since Paris. Inside, her laptop. Her wallet. A pair of sunglasses. But no note. No apology. Just evidence that she'd been here long enough to drop things off, and not long enough to face me. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the door. This wasn't a business play. This was personal. Something deeper. Something I wasn't seeing. I opened her laptop. I knew the password. Of course I did. She never changed it. Her mother's birthday. I didn't feel guilty. That ship had sailed the moment she let her sister humiliate me in front of the board. Her browser was open to a calendar. Meetings. Flight bookings. All canceled. One entry stood out. Noel, final asset brief/private. The location. Clarissa's maiden name trust. Noel. That name landed like a brick. She was the New York attorney Clarissa brought in a few months ago to overhaul the succession structure. Ice-veined. Eyes like razors. I'd spoken to her once. Didn't like how she smiled at Clarissa and didn't bother shaking my hand. I closed the laptop. Stood. I wasn't ready to make my move yet, but the game had changed, and they had no idea I was still on the board. I didn't hear from her for 3 more days. Not a word, not even a text. But others did. Emails started coming in from the outer orbit, old clients, former suppliers, even a photographer I hadn't spoken to since our 4th anniversary ad campaign. Each one a variation of the same quiet question. What's happening over there? I heard you're out. Is that true? Clarissa said you stepped down? Stepped down. Like I volunteered to vanish. I answered none of them. Instead, I buried myself in the documents. The ones from the merger 5 years ago, when Raphael handed me the reins to that little IP holding firm, the same firm now controlling the trademarks, patents, and proprietary tech that made Crimson and Veil anything more than fabric and attitude. They never dissolved the agreement, never even amended it, because Raphael never thought I'd be out. And Clarissa, she never thought I mattered. Marco finally called instead of texting. I let it ring twice before picking up. You've seen it, haven't you? He said. No greeting. I have. They don't know yet. Not really. But the lawyers are sniffing around. Bianca thinks she can reverse it. She can't. Marco exhaled through his nose. I didn't think so. There was a pause. I could hear him clicking through something on his screen. You've got them by the throat, Julian. If you wanted to, you could freeze their assets. They'd be dead in a week. I said nothing. Not yet. That night, I took a walk. The streets were quiet. Dim porch lights. Sprinklers hissing. I passed the boutique where Clarissa used to window shop on Saturdays, pretending she didn't already own half the season's inventory. She'd loop her arm through mine and joke about being frugal. That same hand signed my termination papers. Back home, I poured myself another drink. Not out of pain this time. Not out of grief. This was different. Focused. Clean. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. And maybe, beneath all of this, I wanted her to look me in the eyes and finally admit it, that she never thought I'd matter once her father stepped down. That Bianca had always hated me. That she liked me best when I was quiet, productive, and visible. I sent one email that night. Short. Surgical. To Board of Directors subject. Clarification of merger terms as outlined in the 2020 CNV Holdings Acquisition Agreement. I retain co-chairman status and exclusive signatory authority over all intellectual property and brand assets currently licensed to Crimson and Veil. No operational decisions involving these assets can be executed without my written consent. Please direct future communications accordingly. Julian Rivera. I copied Raphael, Marco, and no one else. The silence after was beautiful, like the moment before a symphony crashes down. The next morning, my phone buzzed twice before I finished pouring coffee. Bianca, we need to talk. No greeting. No apology. I didn't reply. Then Clarissa, Julian. Please. Can we meet? That one I stared at for a while. Not because I didn't expect it. I did. It was the tone that caught me soft. Careful. Like the woman I'd married was still in there somewhere, under the frostbite. I didn't answer. Let her sweat. Marco called again just before noon. You should have heard the panic. Their lawyer was in a full spiral. I think she threw a chair. Let her throw too. He chuckled, but then his voice dropped. What are you going to do? I looked out the window. The sun was too bright. The house too clean. I'm not sure yet, I said, but I'm not rushing it. That night, I opened Clarissa's laptop again. Same password. Same cold digital trail. There was a folder I hadn't seen before, hidden in a system backup. Inside, scanned copies of Raphael's personal letters. Notes about the succession plan. Mentions of me. Of how he didn't trust Bianca's judgment. Of how Clarissa needed someone steady beside her. She had everything she wanted, and still chose to cut me loose. I closed the laptop. Went to bed. Didn't sleep. Not because I was angry. Because I was done waiting for her to explain. She showed up on a Tuesday, No warning. No text. Just her silver car in the driveway, glinting like a lie in the sun. I watched from the kitchen window as she stepped out, heels clicking against the pavement like nothing had changed. She wore black, always her war color. Her hair was pulled back, so tight it looked painful. I didn't move. She didn't knock right away. She stood at the door like she was gathering something. Courage, maybe. Or a version of herself that wouldn't shatter on contact. When she finally knocked, it was soft. Polite. Like this was a social call and not a visit to the man she fired and then ghosted for a week. I opened the door but didn't step aside. Her eyes scanned me quick, clinical. Then softer, like she was checking if I'd become someone else while she was gone. You look tired, she said. You don't. She didn't smile. Can I come in? I let the silence stretch. Then stepped back. She walked in like she still lived there. Paused at the dining room table like it meant something to her. It didn't. We hadn't eaten a meal there together in months. I didn't know, she said quietly, turning toward me. About the contract. Of course she didn't. She hadn't looked at a document without a lawyer in 5 years. I assumed they'd taken care of everything, she added. They. She flinched. Bianca handled the paperwork. Of course she did. Clarissa took a breath, then sat. Crossed her legs like we were negotiating a press release, not trying to untangle whatever was left of us. We made a mistake, she said. I sat across from her but didn't lean in. You fired me in front of your sister. No warning. No conversation. I know. You watched her call me lazy. And said nothing. I know. I waited for more. An apology. A confession. A sliver of humanity. But she just stared at me, her hands folded in her lap like a schoolgirl practicing restraint. The board's in chaos, she said after a moment. They're getting calls from every investor. We have 3 licensing contracts frozen. Our biggest supplier pulled out yesterday. I watched her face. She wasn't panicked. Not yet. Just composed in that way that always made people think she was the smartest one in the room. The calm center of the storm. What do you want from me, Clarissa? She met my gaze finally. I want to fix this. With you. The way she said it made me laugh. With me? Yes. I leaned back. She didn't reach for me. She didn't cry. She didn't even pretend to. And maybe that's what made it worse. That she could sit here, in the wreckage, and still wear that mask like it was armor. I'm not coming back, I said. Her mouth tightened. I'm not your fixer anymore, I added. You want to be gone. You got what you wanted. There was a flicker then. Something behind the eyes. Not regret. Not quite. But maybe it's shadow. I didn't want this, she said quietly. I thought if I stepped back, Bianca would stop pushing. That maybe she'd stop trying to control everything. I didn't know she'd. Would what? Fire me? Humiliate me? Clarissa looked down at her hands. The diamond ring still sat on her finger like it didn't know it was a prop. I was tired, she said, of the fights, of feeling like I was caught between you and her. You weren't caught. You chose. She nodded. No denial. Then, you scared me. That stopped me cold. Scared you how? You kept everything running, she said. No matter what broke, you fixed it. And that scared me, because it meant you didn't need me. I let that sink in. The woman I'd supported for a decade, the woman I built an empire with, was afraid of being irrelevant. So she made me disappear first. I stood, walked to the window. The street was quiet. A woman walked a dog down the block. It felt unreal, like the world should have cracked open a little by now. When I turned back, she was watching me. What do you want, Julian? She asked. I thought about that. Really thought. I didn't want her back. I didn't want revenge. I wanted the truth. The whole truth. Not the PR version. So I asked, why now? Why the desperation? She hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. Inside, a letter from Raphael, dated 6 weeks ago. It was addressed to the board. A contingency plan. If the company leadership changed hands, and any attempt was made to remove Julian Rivera without cause, the IP control would revert solely to him. It was all there. Signed. Notarized. He'd seen this coming. And she had known. How long have you had this? Since he died. That was 5 weeks ago. You knew I had power, I said slowly. You just hoped I wouldn't use it. I hoped it wouldn't come to this. I nodded once, then closed the folder. I want one thing from you, I said. What? Tell the board what you did. Clarissa blinked. Tell them you let your sister remove me illegally. Tell them you lied about my exit. Tell them the company's in crisis because of choices you made. Her voice caught. Julian, you want my signature? That's the price. She didn't cry, but her hands clenched, just a little. Then she stood. I'll think about it. No, I said. You won't. You'll do it. Or this whole empire burns with you. I walked her to the door. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't look back. When the door closed, I leaned against it. The silence this time felt different. Not like absence. More like resolution. The board meeting wasn't at the main headquarters. It was in one of the off-site properties' neutral ground. The kind of place people go when they need to look civilized while knives are being drawn under the table. I arrived 10 minutes early. Clarissa was already there. She sat at the far end of the table, a black blazer over a cream blouse, posture perfect. No one would have guessed she hadn't slept. Or that a week ago, she tried to vanish me like I was a stain on the fabric of her legacy. I didn't nod when I passed her. I just took my seat and laid the folder flat in front of me, the one with the original merger terms, the notarized letter from Raphael, and every document that proved I wasn't some discarded employee. I was the locked dot, and they didn't have the key. One by one, the others filed in: Marco, 2 outside counsel, 1 investor representative, and 3 board members I hadn't spoken to since the day Clarissa and Bianca took over. Most avoided my eyes. A few looked relieved. And then there was Noelle. She sat like a statue. Her jaw clenched so tight it made her temples twitch. Bianca didn't show. Clarissa glanced at the clock, then stood. I'd like to begin, she said. No one stopped her. She looked across the table, not at me, but at them. At the people who once called her a visionary. The ones who'd rubber-stamped every bad decision because her last name still carried weight. Her voice was steady when she started. Julian Rivera was removed from Crimson and Vale without proper board consent. It was an oversight I allowed, and one I take full responsibility for. No excuses. No qualifiers. Silence rippled across the room like a slow wave. She went on. In doing so, we violated the operating agreement tied to the CNV Holdings acquisition. Julian retains controlling interest over the intellectual property that defines our brand portfolio. Without his authorization, we are unable to license, expand, or fulfill any current production contracts. She paused. No one breathed. Then she looked at me. I lied, she said. This time, it was only for me. I told the board you stepped down, that it was your decision, that it was amicable. That wasn't true. I allowed my sister to act on personal resentment, and I didn't stop her. I didn't defend you. I thought I could control the fallout. She swallowed. I was wrong. The words sat in the air like smoke. No one spoke. I didn't move, but I could feel the room shifting, just slightly, as if something heavy had finally cracked under its own weight. Clarissa sat down. Then all eyes turned to me. One of the older board members, a man named Hal, cleared his throat. Julian, would you be willing to return? Under revised terms? I looked at him, then at Clarissa, then at the folder in front of me. No, I said. There was a ripple of whispers. One of the attorneys raised a brow. Marco didn't flinch. I'm not interested in coming back, I said. But I'm not walking away either. I pushed the folder forward. Crimson and Vale continues to use my name on its patents, processes, and licensing deals. That ends today unless a formal agreement is reached. one that acknowledges what happened here, one that ensures this company is led with integrity, not convenience. Hal nodded slowly. And what would that look like? Clarissa steps back. Bianca is removed from all operational roles. A third-party executive is brought in to run the day-to-day, and I retain full veto power over any licensing or M&A activity for the next 3 years. It was a clean kill, delivered without venom. Clarissa didn't argue, because she knew this was the best deal she'd ever get. The meeting adjourned in silence. Marco caught up with me outside the building. You sure you're okay not going back? I looked at him. This company doesn't need another fixer. It needs a mirror. He laughed softly. That's going to sting. Good. Clarissa emerged a few minutes later. Alone. She walked over but didn't get too close. I meant it, she said. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. Good, I said. Because you're not getting it. She looked away then, toward her car, toward the life she still thought she could hold together with enough polish and planning. Then she turned back. Will you be okay? It wasn't a real question. It was a reflex. But I answered anyway. I already am. She nodded, got in her car, and drove off. I watched her disappear around the corner. Not with bitterness, not with regret, but with something quieter, something more final. When I got home, I went upstairs to the office, sat at the same desk where I used to build her dream, opened a blank document, and started something new. It didn't make the news. That was the part that surprised me. No press releases, no social media spin, just a quiet restructuring statement buried on the Crimson and Veil investor portal 2 weeks later, full of neutral language. Executive transition plan. Interim leadership. Refocusing of brand direction. Clarissa's name wasn't mentioned once. Bianca's was already gone. They moved quickly after the board vote. That was the deal. We wouldn't drag each other through a public war, as long as the company did what it promised. I signed the revised agreement in Marco's office on a cloudy Thursday without fanfare. No handshake. No celebration. Just ink on paper and a simple line at the bottom. Julian Rivera retains full asset veto until 2028. They'd lost control of the engine, and I wasn't giving it back. The strange part was what came next. Nothing. No sudden rush of satisfaction. No fireworks. Just mornings without emails. Afternoons where I didn't have to put out fires someone else started. Silence again, but this time, it felt like mine. The house stayed empty. Clarissa didn't come back. She moved into a penthouse uptown, apparently. Noelle was seen leaving the same building 3 days later. Whether that meant anything, I didn't know. Didn't care. But part of me kept waiting. Not for her to return, but for the echo of her. Some trace of the woman I once loved. The one who used to laugh, really laugh, when we were just two nobodies with a dream and a shared pot of bad coffee on Raphael's factory floor. But she was gone long before the firing. Maybe that's what I kept missing. This wasn't betrayal in a single moment. It was 1,000 quiet abandonments. 1,000 times she chose silence when she could have spoken. Distance when I needed closeness. Optics when I needed truth. That's what I buried. Not the marriage. The illusion. 3 weeks after the board meeting, I found something. It wasn't buried. Just overlooked. A hard drive in the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet. Black. Unlabeled. I almost didn't plug it in. But habit dies hard. Inside, folders. Spreadsheets. Audio files. And a subfolder marked Noelle. My breath caught. I opened it. Dozens of call recordings. Legal memos. Transcripts. I listened to the first one, then the next. It took a while to understand what I was hearing. Noelle hadn't just been advising Clarissa on succession planning. She was documenting her. Everything. Calls with suppliers. Off-record conversations with Bianca. Early attempts to funnel licensing contracts to a shell firm based out of the Caymans. Paperwork with falsified signatures, mine. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of it slowly crushing me. This wasn't just about firing me. They had planned to replace me on paper, on ownership filings, and licensing structures. The IP wasn't just supposed to be removed. It was supposed to be erased, like I'd never been part of it. And Noelle? She was building her own insurance policy the whole time. None of it had reached the board, but it could have, and that made her dangerous. I sat in the dark for a long time, listening to the last file, a voicemail Noelle left for someone. The voice was clipped, precise. If this blows up, I want out clean. I warned them. Julian isn't the type you just walk away from. She was right. I didn't call anyone. I didn't send the files. But I didn't delete them either. I made a copy. 3, actually. One went into a fireproof lockbox in my father's basement. One into a secure cloud drive Marco helped me set up. And one I mailed to a P.O. box under a different name. Just in case. I never said a word to Clarissa. What would I say? That her confidant was never on her side? That her plan failed not because I was lucky, but because I was paying attention when she thought I was asleep? No. Let her live with her version. The world she built on borrowed confidence. The silence was better. Clean. I moved out of the house in April. Found a smaller place across town. 1 bedroom. Hardwood floors. A view of nothing in particular. It felt right. Marco helped me set up a holding company. Quiet, unbranded. No need for headlines. I started investing again selectively. Design firms. Textile labs. One small startup run by a kid who reminded me of myself before the suits and the politics. Before trust became a liability. I never told him where I used to work. Just helped him sign his first contract with a major distributor. He asked me what the catch was. No catch, I said. Just don't forget who you are when the money shows up. He looked at me like I was speaking a different language. Maybe I was. Maybe you can only hear it once you've lost enough. Clarissa emailed me once. Subject line, thank you. No body text. No attachment. Just 2 words. I read it once, then archived it. Not because I forgave her, but because I didn't need to keep it anymore. The last thing I'll say is this. When people talk about betrayal, they think it comes with yelling. Affairs. Some kind of cinematic explosion. But that's not how it happens. It happens when someone stops asking how your day was. When they start using silence like a scalpel. When they look through you one morning, and you realize they've been rehearsing that indifference for months. That's what breaks you. Not the fire. The freeze. So if you're listening to this and wondering how it ends quietly. With a signed document. A locked drawer. And a man you once called lazy, holding the rights to your future in his back pocket. Thanks for watching. If this story pulled you in, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss the next confession. Until next time, take care and watch who you trust.